Pittsburgh Ballet Theater School is training the next generation of professional dancers by providing ballet and dance education of the highest caliber that prepares students for professional careers in dance. PBT's school focuses on the dancer as a whole person and nurturing them into creative, confident, and well-rounded individuals. They welcome students of all levels, interests, and backgrounds, and foster an equitable and inclusive environment. The school features individualized men's programming, emphasis on whole dancer health, nurtured student choreography opportunities, offers international students visas, as well as a wide array of performing opportunities. Full scholarships are available for men's training, including year-round tuition from September through May, 2-week company experience workshops, 5-week intensive summer program, and more. Pittsburgh Ballet Theater School's intensive summer program runs from June 25th to July 29th. Auditions are held across the country January 7th through February 12th, with a virtual audition on January 13th. Learn more about Pittsburgh Ballet Theater School and their intensive summer program at pbt.org, or click the link in the description of this episode.
Hi everyone, Michael here. I just wanted to let you know about 2 very exciting events that I'll be moderating here in New York City. The first is with our longtime collaborator, Works in Process, on Sunday, January 22nd at the Guggenheim. I'll be interviewing choreographer Troy Schumacher, Pulitzer-nominated writer Karen Russell, and composer Ellis Ludwig-Leone about their collaborative, dance-driven musical theater work, The Night Falls. The following day, Monday, January 23rd, I'll be moderating a discussion at the David H. Koch Theater at Lincoln Center with choreographer and Tony Award winner Justin Peck about his first full evening work, Copeland Dance Episodes, featuring live performances from the dancers of the New York City Ballet. Tickets can be found for each of these programs at guggenheim.org/initiatives/works-process and nycballet.com/educate/public-programs/inside-NYCB.
Welcome to Conversations on Dance. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the podcast through your favorite app to be automatically notified of new episodes when they go live. While you are there, please take a moment to leave us a review. Leaving a review takes just a second and goes a long way in helping us grow the podcast and supports us in this endeavor. We appreciate you joining us today. Now, let's get to the episode. I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. Well, it's that time of year, guys. It's the dead of winter. And what's on everyone's mind? Summer intensives. So we brought back one of our favorite co-hosts, Ms. Kate Penner.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
We're always happy to have you. Back by popular demand, in fact. So we're thrilled to have you here.
Honored.
As I've mentioned to Rebecca, I have students who probably, would otherwise find a podcast boring, but have tuned into your ice skating episode because ice skating is fun. Ballet, no fun.
That really was a great episode. People should go back and listen.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look how far in the rearview mirror it is. Do you remember the next day or maybe 2 days later, the doping scandal broke, which is still unresolved, by the way.
Oh, is that true?
You were like, is everything like garbage in our episode? And I was like, no, it's fine. Just, this is the nature of the sport.
And in fact, it's more relevant than ever, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
It was a fun little capsule of that moment.
Yeah.
To think that it can just turn on its head at any other moment.
Truly.
Wild.
But let's dive in. Where are we starting with our summer program episode? Are we going to relay our individual experiences? Should we talk about where we each went?
Yeah, I think we're going to maybe talk about where we went, but we also definitely want to talk about auditions because that's kind of like what everyone's in right now. So we'll talk about some of those tips too. And so maybe Kate, tell us where some of the summer programs that you went to as a young dancer.
Great. Thank you. I spent a little bit of time reflecting on my summer program experience leading up to recording this conversation. And I thought that there were some really interesting aspects of it that I hadn't put in place intentionally because I was so young. And of course, you're only living your life once. You've never done this before. You've never gone through this pipeline of training before.
Yeah.
I went to a small school in Northern Virginia that is now called Ballet Nova, but was then called Arlington Center for Dance. And the way that thinking about auditioning for summer programs worked was you would go on point at 11. We had a summer program that had 3 levels. And so there was a lot of inertia around doing each of the 3 levels after that summer that you went on point. And then you would be going away, possibly after that.
So they would encourage you to go away.
They would encourage you to go away, but not those 3. Like, it would have been a big deal if I had said, I'm not going to do the 3rd year, or I'm not going to do the 2nd. That would have really like been very contrary to years and years and years of students.
Gotcha.
And the summer program was very good. I mean, I think it allowed summer programs. I think, why do them? You now get to have your primary focus in terms of number of hours per week and peak focus hours of the day be ballet. You're not doing 7 hours of school and then going to 3 hours of ballet at 3:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get to wake up. It's the thing that you're doing. It's at the freshest physical hours, the freshest mental hours. And it's just a really expedient way to amass a lot of training. And I remember looking in the mirror and realizing like, oh, like 3 weeks in and my front extension is like over 90 degrees this one summer. Like, you can see the gains.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So I knew that I would be staying at home for those 3 years. Houston Ballet used to have their audition stop at that school. And so despite the fact that I would not be attending a summer program, it was a great opportunity to begin auditioning for summer programs in a familiar space. It was at my school. And that was really encouraged by our school as well. And Houston Ballet knew that. Houston Ballet School knew that.
Yeah.
And so it was really a great, like, I think it's so hard to walk into an audition space feeling like I might really go the very first time that you're doing it. Yeah. And so knowing that, like, okay, I'm just trying it out. I'm just seeing what it's like, wearing a number, lining up, combinations like that, all those things. So had 3 years of doing that. And as the 3 years went by the 3rd year, I was doing more than Houston. I think I was doing maybe a few more. And then 9th grade year hits and it's everything. For the first 2 years of my high school experience, I did Princeton Ballet School. My choices were very much like influenced by what my parents were interested in as well. So there was a lot of allure there that it was on a college campus. My parents wanted me to really think about going to college at the end of high school. And so what ended up happening, though, was that it was a smaller summer program and I got a lot of great attention. There were amazing teachers. And it was, for me, created these like huge technical jumps from the start of the summer to the end.
Right.
And even though I may have been like very curious about what my classmates were doing at larger company summer programs, like they often would talk about feeling maybe a little bit lost and not knowing how to navigate that experience as well. And then after those 2 years, I did Suzanne Farrell's summer program at the Kennedy Center, Exploring Ballet with Suzanne Farrell, which is how I met you, Michael.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about my experience for now. Michael, why don't you go ahead and talk about your experience?
I think you've already hit upon some interesting things, like the studios that need you to do, a specific number of years with them. But even beyond that, I don't know. That like with your studio setup sounds like they were just wanting you to really have like the foundation and to ensure that you're not just like going to one of those like, a lot of places they're just like pack them in,
right?
And and the individual attention drops when you get
if you don't have a strategy to navigate that kind of scenario, you really will feel like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. My years, I went to, for ages 12, 13, 14, I did CPYB, which I feel like when you're that young, I don't know. There are very few programs that I would recommend going to. That's quite young. I wouldn't go to like an SAB or San Francisco Ballet at 12 by myself. Like I did, like that program is kind of geared towards people being, I mean, you could be super young and you're very well taken care of. Whereas a lot of companies or a lot of programs associated with companies, they're trying to find people that are really doing like their finishing school, like their final years. They're just like brushing up on whatever style the company is associated with so that they are prepping to potentially be in that company. So
Right.
that's a distinction that I think is important to make.
That's
Like,
interesting.
when you're
So
younger.
I wonder too, so while you're saying that too, when maybe we'll get to this too, when you're trying to decide what schools to audition for, but when you're at those last few years, you should maybe be thinking also company related, not just school related.
Oh, I tell my students that for sure. And then at 15, I went to SAB where, they asked me to stay for the year. So, I did. And then SAB is kind of the opposite. Of a lot of schools that are like, stay, we want you to be here. They're like, please leave. And I don't really know why that is.
I think that's really good, honestly. I think it's, I mean, that last night.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I certainly am very happy. Because I would, if the culture was, you stay, you'll be rewarded if you stay, then I would have done that and I would have been happy to do it. But getting out allowed me to go to San Francisco Ballet summer, which was, a wonderful experience. Like when I think about that, like my two primary teachers there, Sandy Jennings and Jeff Edwards, like Sandy set me up for both of the major jobs that I got. And Jeff Edwards, once I retired, he was so kind, and he was the first person to be like, okay, I'm going to like hook you up with ballet tech. You should be teaching here. And here's this other job. Like he got me some of my first jobs post retirement. So if I hadn't gone to that program and been introduced to those teachers, I'd be unemployed, right?
I think expanding your network. I know that's the like professionalized, like kind of like outside ballet way to talk about that. But I was just thinking about someone that I was very close to who went to a school that had a company on it, and on top of it, and was told, stay, 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 very much sort of like encouraged and told, you'll be rewarded. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in you for the studio company. I'm interested in you. And at the end of the day, first that's 4 years away, then it's 3 years away, then it's 2 years away. And by the time it's there are a lot of factors that are out of their hands. They're like, what's their budget look like? What's their current staffing look like? The big question is, do they actually have a job for you after they've said we're interested for so many years? It doesn't mean that they're not interested anymore, but there's more than interest that goes into hiring someone.
Budgeting and need and programming. What's the rep going to be?
You in the company often. And it's just like, here's this person who made a long train of decisions that were contingent on this thing happening. And then when it didn't look like it was going to happen, there weren't those professional networks. You talking about your first major jobs coming out of those relationships. If you don't have those relationships, you can really feel out to sea if the thing that was supposed to materialize does not materialize. So I think I think, and I mean, of course, it's just a big psychological hit, but from like a practical sense, you just feel so like, I have wandered down the wrong path, and I mean, and it's so helpful to send people away so they take with other teachers see them, other teachers think of them if they reach out. And now it's easier than ever to stay in touch with people. Back in our day, you had to send like a pigeon or something and be like, I need a job.
That's good.
I remember feeling so silly. Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I remember feeling so silly because you had to call people. Like I couldn't just you. I mean, I guess I could have sent. Yeah, I could have sent an email, but I don't know. I remember like calling Sandy, be like, "Is it okay if I put your phone number down as a person who would recommend me?"
Right.
You just like when you're like 15, you feel like an idiot calling your teacher.
Right.
But
well, it's funny even that you say that about not necessarily promises being made, but thinking like, oh, I'm going to stay on this track to end up in this place. And for me, I went to San Francisco summer program. And then they told me, because I lived in the Bay Area, it was close to me. I always loved the company. So that was like my mindset. They did not let me in for the first year, but I think they said something along the lines of like, not yet, So I was like, that one word to hang on to, yeah. And so then the next year I went, they immediately said no, like right away. And I was like, oh, okay. But I had kind of like kept my hopes on that. And that's why I was going again. And so then I left and auditioned in the middle of the summer course because I needed somewhere to go for the year. And so that's how I ended up in Miami. But I loved my time at San Francisco. It was so great. And it was so, so important for me. And that, especially that balancing foundation that I hadn't had yet. And so I think it was really important for my career, but I think it's complicated when you're really getting ready to like go away and find that year-round school that you need, get into the company. So it's tough.
The theme that seems to be coming out of like what each of us is saying is that at different stages of your training, you're going to have different goals. You're talking about leaving a summer program to go to other auditions because your goal was to find year-round training. Like that was it. And that's the appropriate choice in that case. Like you really were there to move out of your current school into a full-time school.
Right.
I think then, Michael, you're talking about during certain ages, we are really thinking about what school will I be going to and what size of classes am I used to? And maybe even what technique am I used to? Or do I want to explore? Versus like, as you move through late middle into early high school, we might want to start moving into balancing technique or, I don't know, going to, a larger company's school.
Right.
And then at the end of high school, if you are thinking about really trying to embark on a professional dance career, then understanding that we're thinking about which companies would be a good fit for you in terms of rep, in terms of the dance style that you've been trained in, and then doing summer programs based off of that.
And let's also be realistic in terms of height and body type.
Yeah.
Because I would not have like, well, I mean, they had a couple of shorter people, but PMB, for instance, would have been somewhere that I would have been like the short person,
Right.
If they had that spot
per everybody.
Yes.
PMB.
They have
PNB of the 2000s.
Right.
And in the same way,
a long reputation for being a very, very tall company
and lots of like legs and feet, which is why I was told to get away from there. Thanks a lot, guys. I mean, hey, be realistic though. I was like, okay, let me.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you need people to tell you.
It's not that you should close the door. I think that for me, the biggest advice I have is just always cast a wide net, whether it's a summer program or you're doing company auditions. But at the same time, you can only go to one summer program, or maybe you can go to two if somewhere has like that little bonus program, like an August moment. But you have to be discerning there. Like it was a better decision for me to go to San Francisco Ballet School, where there were people, the heights, there was a bigger range, and I had connections, versus going to PMB for that one summer and then seeing, really rolling the dice there.
You know what else is important too while you're saying this? So thinking back to what happened to me where I didn't get into the school that I wanted to, and then I was looking for a school, it was really helpful for me, the fact that I had auditioned for a lot of places, because then I was able to, and of course not all of them remember, had a note on me or whatever, but Miami City Ballet did, and they remembered me, I guess, or I don't know how it worked, but I was able to say I did audition, I was here, at X date, whatever. So they were able to go back. And so when we're talking about casting a wide net, that's also helpful. Just the more people you're in front of you, and you never know. I never was like, oh, I want to be in Miami City Ballet, but it was the perfect company for me in the end, and it worked out in the right way. And I just did it because I was like, oh, it's an audition that's coming to San Francisco, so I'm going to do it. And so the wide net is really big. And I was thinking this morning too about like how they talk about applying for colleges, which is like, and Kate, you can probably speak to this more than I can, but having, like your safe school, your reach school, those sorts of things. And I think it's kind of in the same way, like, don't just audition for the places you have your heart set on, like, try for everything.
I also think like college or summer program, these are not, as much as we look at the posts by the schools and these pictures on Instagram, the program experience is not a picture.
Right.
The program experience is you going to class in a cohort of people, is you interacting with the faculty there. And like, it is a living, breathing exchange of ideas about how you will become a better dancer.
Totally.
It is not a picture. It is not encapsulated by a video of their best student doing a million pirouettes or with their leg up to their ear. That's not going to be, that's no one's experience. That's just a thing someone can do.
Right.
So like going to an audition, I think it's not only just putting yourself in front of other people, but really becoming familiar with how other people teach and how other people coach and what they see in you. And when I look back on Princeton Ballet School, so much of what really pushed me to become so much better was that they were different teachers than the ones that had known me since I was 5. Right. Who gave me different corrections or worded in a different way or saw strengths that, my teachers at home were seeing every day. And so we're no longer commenting on, and that positive feedback was really helpful to me. New corrections and new ways of thinking about things was really helpful to me. Because, I was at the end of 8th grade and I'd had a lot of the same teachers for at that point, like 5 years at that sort of intermediate level. And it is not pictures. It's not, what's the fanciest name or it is
the alumni.
Yeah. We had great faculty. We got to learn fantastic rep. That's what your program is. The experience is.
Yeah, that's so funny you said that. I was thinking of that. You just made me think of a correction. I don't even remember what it was, but it was something that I heard like every day and I couldn't grasp it. And then I remember there was a moment in Gloria Govern's class at San Francisco Ballet School, and she's just said it to me in a different way. And I was like, oh, and then I got it. And I remember going back to my home school and they're like, how did you finally figure that out? And I was like, I don't know. She just said it different, but like, it was something like for my friends. Yeah. It was just like one thing, just sometimes the way someone just with fresh eyes can see you and say it slightly different can make a big difference.
Right.
And it's not to say that like your homeschool faculty are less than. No. I would be in the same position when you see someone the same every day for years and years and years. They are trying to help you. They're trying to give you those corrections to the best of their abilities. And I knew that. And it was like, I had a similar issue for like my middle school years. My legs knew what they were doing. My arms were just like, they looked not held. The core, the energy was not radiating outwards from my body. It just looked discombobulated. It looked unintentional.
Maybe you weren't using your back. Maybe you weren't using your back. No.
And it was just like, I don't know. I went there. Maybe it also overlapped with me really starting to get taller and sort of like mature a little bit more physically. And it really just dancing that much really helped at that moment. And hearing those teachers, it was amazing. Like it was amazing. Right. So I want to encourage people to like pay attention to how that audition class is going, what kinds of corrections people are giving, because it's so easy to go in and just be like, oh my God, this is me presenting myself. And it's all about what I can do and how perfect I am. And everyone's aware that you're a student and that you're learning and that this is like one moment in your trajectory. And you're also trying to figure out, where you might like to attend.
Right. The Frederick Quinny Lawson Ballet West Academy is excited to announce their summer programs. Come explore Salt Lake City and all that Ballet West has to offer. We are launching an exciting chapter in 2023 under Academy Director Evelyn Cisneros-Legate with the return of our strong summer programs and year-round professional training division. This year, we will also have student housing beginning August of 2023. A variety of summer programs are available for students ages 9 and up. Our flagship program at the downtown Salt Lake City campus begins June 13th with 5 and 3 week options. Auditions across the nation in partnership with Art Emotion begin in January with 22 audition cities. Students are given the unique opportunity to train with master faculty, including guests from the main company and special visitors like Karen Averty and Megan Fairchild. Start your journey to Ballet West Academy today at academy.balletwest.org and use code BWPOD, that's BWPOD, for $5 off your audition fee. So maybe we could do a little rundown, because it sounds like we've already mentioned that there are different needs at different points in your life. Like a 12-year-old is different from a 15-year-old. Obviously, you're not shopping for the same things out of a summer intensive. So when we're 12, 13, 14, I think the thing that we're looking at most is just number of hours, right? Like number of hours. I mean, of course, combined with good training, but some of the other, things that come to your mind, like SAB, for instance, back in my day had fewer hours a day. But if you're looking to go to SABs to maybe ideally get into New York City Ballet, or go to SAB to go for the year-round program, and you're 16, 17, like your training is wrapping up, it's not as integral of a part of the puzzle, right? It's not like, it's like, okay, I have 2.5 hours a day versus 4, but that's okay because we're looking at different goals. But I think I'm thinking 12 to 14, middle school, it's still just that thing, like 10,000 hours thing. Right. You have to get the number of hours as high as possible, especially as Kate mentioned, it's a rare time where you have the freshest hours of the day and you have no other focus. It's just ballet.
We should have a number when we're saying what's a good amount. My memory of what I did was 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a break for lunch.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We used to hang around in an empty studio and do pirouette contests.
Of course. They're just
not for Instagram. It was just how to do pirouettes
for ourselves to work on them.
CPYB, when I went, I was definitely doing 30 plus hours a week of class, which is really crazy.
That's a lot.
It's 6 hours a day some days.
But maybe we also need to talk about the other things that are included in the program other than ballet, because then, there's a lot of schools have other things, and what maybe we're looking for in terms of that as well.
I think that's so important because you can have students who are just learning about different choreographers and different modalities of movement, like Taylor or Horton or Graham. And I remember being introduced to those in my first summer programs. I think for listeners who did not go through this pipeline, these are 4 to 6 week programs often, where ballet is the thing that you're doing absolutely every day, ballet and point, or ballet and men's class. And I hope that they're allowing people, now that we're sort of moving away from the pre-assigned gender roles, to take point class if they're interested in point class. But I'll be interested to see how that sort of evolves, because it still seems like if you're not a woman who's interested in point, it's still a little bit up to you, it feels like, to find those resources. And I hope that
figure it out.
Programs are bundling those resources and realizing that more people are interested in this. But then in the afternoon, you might have a variations class where you're learning repertory or modern or jazz or Pilates or
character. Also, people still do character class? Is that a thing anymore? Yeah. Okay, good.
At SAP, it was one of the few things. It was interesting because it was very specific. You could get younger people got character, and we also had ballroom. And then younger people also had musical education.
That's great.
But there was no modern jazz or anything like that.
I wish I would have had some of that.
Sorry,
we had modern at SFB. Yeah.
But we didn't, did we? I remember having jazz and character.
No,
we had modern.
In modern, they played drums. Yeah. We we had a live drummer.
So I have no excuse for why I can't do modern, is what you're telling me. I blocked it out.
Oh, we also have Pilates. Oh my God.
Pilates,
I hate Pilates so much.
Good.
But when you're young, you I don't know. A lot of us, I'm pretty sure we all probably didn't like the extra stuff, but it can be helpful.
I think one of the classes that I took that I was about was classical mime. And It really, wow. Because I know when I teach students, when I've worked with others, when they've never had any background in classical mime, like the presentation of the entire carriage as like whether you're a villager or you're the sugar plum telling the story in that second act at the top of the second act of Nutcracker, like you can tell when people have a training underpinning those moments, and they happen everywhere and nobody stops to teach you. They're just like, why does it look weird?
I had that. I remember at like when I was very young at my school, and I hated it again. We had like pantomime, and I remember we had workbooks actually where we would like have to translate into words what the pantomime was. And then also character. I mean, we did character from the very beginning, even I think without jazz and that sort of thing. But it really served me well when it came to classical ballets. Like it was really, and it was so good for me. And you're right. Like, I don't feel like that's something you necessarily, or I didn't get, I guess, in a professional school environment, but I did when I was young and I was lucky to, but it's so important.
All right.
So maybe could we go back?
Yeah, let's go back.
We started with like middle school, you're trying to get hours in, and so I think like that should be your priority, right? So like Kate, your school, you had a great school that was going to give you, X number of hours a week with good teachers. So you're not really needing to be out of the nest yet. You're getting, your needs are being met, and being seen is not something that needs to come into your mind. And also maybe 12 to 14 is very young, so it can be hard to go away. I remember getting really homesick my first time I went away. But then what are we looking at for early high school years? We're thinking now we're maybe looking to go away for the year. Company life should be a part of that thought process. But what else?
I think the technique that's being taught, the teacher, I think that's a great thing that you guys brought up is the instructors and their background. It's so easy now to find this information online. Again, I think we were flying so blind in some ways, like we would just go based on what people were telling us. But looking at what where the faculty has been, thinking about the fact that you can use them for part of your network later, or, like having those connections. The ballet world is small. So that's another great thing to be thinking about, and casting that wide net as well.
After that, then let's say maybe you've already gone to a different school, like you've moved on from your hometown into a somewhat bigger situation. Maybe it's the place you want to stay, for a company. It's your ideal is to be in the company associated with the school you're at. But then we're looking at other places just as sort of our safe schools, right? Like you're trying to see what other directors might have interest in you, or, that sort of thing. So that's another wide net situation. But as we said, we're trying to be realistic too. And what does this company's rep look like? Does that suit the training I've had? What do their dancers look like? Are they my height? I mean, height is just something I don't think I can overstate how important it is. Like so many rejections, or I guess just, people would, I heard that a million times in my life. Is that we like you, but you're too short, or like those short spots are filled. And I know that very tall women get that all the time as well. So just good things to consider.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And I think that, this is also kind of goes back to casting that wide net, because you can use that as, I don't want to say like a bargaining chip necessarily, but if you have your heart set somewhere and you still are casting that wide net, and you're still like, just in case I need to have backups, if that school company comes through and another one does, then you have options, which is always great too. And you can kind of use that a little bit, right, for your deciding where to go in the future. So one thing just before we wrap up, let's do a little bit of audition tips for those of us who are going to be auditioning this month and next for some summer intensive. I know Kate has one right off the top that's very important.
Which one was it? The leotard?
What leotard are you wearing?
What leotard are you wearing? And I think I came from a school that had a uniform leotard. It was a very conservative leotard. The color and the style were prescribed, which is the case for many schools now. And I feel that there are just a lot of ways that we can be very well intended in picking a different leotard for an audition, but kind of like drive the car right off the road. And I think you don't want to go too wild with patterns or colors. Really, they want to see you dancing, not your leotard.
I think that
like that,
like
what should
people
be connecting with you.
You could be thinking like, oh, I want to stand out, so I'm going to wear this bright patterned leotard, but maybe that's not. Kate's saying no, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah, you're not an adult. You're still a student.
Yes. We're talking black or a dark color. You can pick you should definitely have a black leotard, because there are going to be some schools that require you to wear a black leotard. And I think I would not be surprised in these coming years to see more and more of them require that, because of the explosion of very bright colors and patterns that just weren't around even 5 years ago.
Right.
So I think you should have a go-to black leotard that you love, but itself is not too outside the box. You know,
it makes you feel good. Like, isn't that the most, like, I feel like I'm superstitious and weird. So I'm pretty sure that I had one leotard that I wore for all of them, because I just like felt good in it and it felt like the right thing, you know? And so that was like the most important thing. And then what about like hair? For me, that was always a thing. Like, that hair has got to be very, like, you don't want it
high bun
and not sloppy, right? Like, use a hairspray, use a hairnet if you need it. For the ladies.
If you'd taken all the pins out, it would have stayed in.
Right.
Like, it was that level. Like, how do I have hair today? This
no, I wonder too.
My head is shaved.
That's so good.
What about, what about for what men are wearing?
Oh, I mean, you just keep it clean. I mean, I like, boys get away with murder anyway, but maybe you'll have a leg up on the competition, because you know that there are going to be some boys that show up and like look disheveled. If you can just come in and look like semi-professional, like, just just keep it tidy. Give me a black tight, a white sock, and a white shoe, and a white shirt that ideally is newer. This is also a teenage issue. Boys at that age sweating incessantly, and you are staining your shirts, and there's nothing less appealing to a panel of judges that if you have like a big yellow sweat stain. So just, it doesn't need to be anything nice. Just give us a Hanes t-shirt,
Yeah.
That will, yeah.
If they allow you. If they allow you to wear leg warmers or pants, are we doing it?
Don't. Ooh,
never.
Who does that?
No. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, and some not in like the really, right? I feel like there were times where they wouldn't tell you to take them off. People would have them off, but for pliés, no, never. Don't ever do it.
I would say also for men, I think tucking the shirt into the tights is a cleaner look than having the shirt out, especially if you're wearing a shirt that you have like thrown into the dryer a million times and it's very short at this point. We need to find, like Michael's saying, it's a new shirt. I also, for ladies, tights, roll them down into your shoes.
Yes.
Like, none of the rolling up. Even if
company member yet.
If you are someone who goes to a school where people are not quite so observant of that rule, you should start practicing that, because your shoes will feel different. Both flat shoes and point shoes will feel different. And I think in general, as you're preparing for auditions, you should be using your home classes as like an incubator of learning the combination, paying attention, staying plugged in through the entire class, because it's super easy to start zoning out at your home classes. And then all of a sudden you show up, and paying attention for an entire class is honestly a very new, very different and heightened experience that you can practice before you get to a summer program audition you really care about.
Yeah.
Right.
I think another thing that's really important is to take corrections that are given and apply them. Remember that they're not looking for someone who's perfectly technically ready to go into a company, or what. They're looking for promise, right? They're looking for someone that they can work with and mold and improve, right?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think, could we, before we wrap up, maybe do one thing? Like we've done, I think, a pretty good job of talking about like how you're picking the programs you're auditioning for, what type of programs you're looking for, how you show up to the audition looking. What do you do once you're in the audition? What if you're a panicker? What if you hate auditioning? What if you are just going to have a meltdown because it's literally people just sitting and judging you? Are there things I'm thinking about this myself right now? Like, all the trickery methods that I would do on stage for stage fright, like it's, you're with your friends on stage. That's a calming thing. So there's someone in the audience, like either a friend or a coach. Like I remember with, like I said, with hoops, my least favorite dance, hoops and Nutcracker, that I would always bomb. I would just be like, you're just in the studio. It's just like in the studio with Arnold, because Arnold was very calming in those rehearsals. And I would just be like, and he was always very encouraging, never got like impatient with me or like was like, you're going to ruin the show, but when you get trapped in the hoop.
Oh, no.
So that would always help me,
Right.
But what are you doing? Because you don't have an ally on that panel of judging teachers, and maybe you're with your friends. What are some ways we can like kind of do a psychological exercise to get us out of the nerve-wracking feels?
I think number one is don't look at what other people are doing. Don't find like, oh, that person's so good. Oh, I'm so much worse than them. Or, like something like that. Like that's not, don't try. And I know it's really, really hard. It's essentially impossible, but try not to compare yourself. Be focused on what the combination is when you're in the back. Be thinking about the combination, the corrections you want to change, changes you want to make for yourself, what you want to make sure you present. Be thinking about that more so than comparing yourself if you can.
Almost maybe then like laser focus on the teacher, like because that's kind of what that all is, right? So it's like you're learning the combination through this person, you're trying to absorb what they want from you and then put it on your own body. I think that like what you just pointed out there, that makes sense of a way to get out of the. I'm just thinking of so specifically of like auditioning for SAB, and the Kirov kids were there, and I'm there thinking I'm garbage, because I thought they were all amazing and I had no balancing training really, like maybe a little bit at CPYB, but I'm like, they're so good, but they were so good in a very different stark direction. So actually at SAB, they were more interested in me because I was more moldable, but I'm not, I wasn't in that mindset. I was thinking like they're so elevated, but it was a distraction. Instead, I should have just been looking at Kay the whole time.
You know what? This just reminded me, my mom would always tell me, because I'd be always nervous about the teacher, looking at me, is that she'd always be like, they put their pants on the same way that you do, one leg at a time. It's like they're still just a person, so trying to think of it that way, like you're just, like you're saying, if you hyper focus on the teacher and then just remember that they're just a person, and also they're just one opinion. All these people are just one opinion. There's always going to be someone out there who values you and your dancing and what you have to give, even if that's not the person. There's going to be someone else. What about you, Kate?
I think you can set some goals, which are things you can actually control. Like, I am going to stay focused. I'm going to enjoy the experience. I'm going to listen to the music. I'm going to smile. I think these are things that really help it feel like the experience is under control for you. And then I also think that sort of like turning it around from I am submitting myself to these people for them to evaluate. Instead, I like the way that you're saying, like sort of introducing yourself to them or welcoming them into what you love about ballet.
Yeah.
And giving them a tour of how you love it is really important. And then I really want to second what Michael was saying, which is like, do it like you're at home. And I don't mean in like the I'm not paying attention in class way, but remind yourself that you have done a million pliés, a million tendus. We are not going to be doing a whole new set of steps. Now, maybe you encounter a brand new step in an audition class. It's like the entire purpose is that you're auditioning for a school which involves learning. So it's not the end of the world. And you should ask a question saying like, can you show that again? Or can you explain that step if you do find yourself in that position? Because I think it shows that you're a great student and you're interested in learning and you're not afraid to say you don't know.
Yes. What a great note to end on, Kate. Thank you for wrapping us up. We have to let Michael run off to work. Speaking
of learning,
going.
I have to go teach.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you, Kate, so much for joining us.
Thanks for
having
me.
Love you both. This was so fun.
Love you both. Take care.
Good luck to everyone listening.
Yes. Thank you. Absolutely.
Good luck, everyone.